Thank you for joining me for this episode. In Her Own Way is a space to create and spark conversations with women around the world who are living boldly. This podcast will offer new perspectives and status quo pushing thoughts from women who speak with heart, soul, and courage. All right, so I want to invite in two beautiful ladies, Amanda Viviers and Hazeldean. I got that right. Yes. And it's pretty exciting because we're at Amanda's house, so I'm actually interviewing people in real life, not just on Zoom, which is pretty fun. And I don't have to worry about the internet crashing, which is even better. So I got your amazing book, Embracing Slow, which has been a year in the making. I remember, was it this time last year you guys were working on it?
Yep.
It came out. I always think you pick up books when you're supposed to read them. Do you know that? Like they sit on your shelves and then all of a sudden you're like, I want to read that book. And then you just plow through it. So I plowed through the whole thing while I was in the bath the other day. It was like a prune at the end. But it's such an amazing book. And I want to talk to you both about this book and this concept of embracing slow. But I'll ask each of you just introduce yourselves, kind of what you do, and then we'll jump into it. Do you want to start, Amanda?
Sure. So my name is Amanda, like you said, and I'm a writer. I've published 7 books, and I love your podcast. I've really been enjoying the last few months and the different guests that you have.
Yeah, I'm loving it too.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, and so I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here today. I just really want to honour the work that you do because I think I just know how isolating this kind of journey can be, and I think that you're an amazing champion of people's voices who are in really different places. So I just want to honour that in you. And so, yeah, I'm an author. I'm a public speaker. I do quite a lot of events. And it's always an ebb and flow that comes from that. And I think sometimes I would prefer to really not be in those places unless I feel like I've got something to say. So it's always digging deep into my heart and my faith and my family and my stories to really help people. So I really love that whole idea of being a storyteller. And I'm a mum with 2 outrageously creative children. And I'm on radio, a part of a radio program, Kin Women. All of us are writers for Kin Women, which I think is an amazing opportunity for us to find like-hearted women and to really empower the storytellers. And Kin Women to me feels really spacious. It doesn't feel really like controlled, or it's almost like if you've got something to say, then bring it. If you don't, it's okay. And I really love that. So I think it's really interesting that we're all together and we've got those places on the internet that we connect, but to actually just sit around a table and to have conversations, it's one of my favourite things on earth to do.
It's great. Yeah, well, I'm Em. I'm a writer first and foremost, even though I've dabbled in a lot of other things. I've worked as a freelance photographer, lifestyle photography, and I've done some weddings, which was insane. I did not put my hand up for those, all the pressure. And I recently finished a double major in English and journalism. So words are first and foremost my thing, have always been my thing. I've been blogging for about 10 years. And I love that recently we've kind of found this tribe of women who are also writers and also love words, and within that journey it's kind of led me to this little editing gig that I've been doing, a little, I guess I could call it a side hustle. I really sat in a lecture once a couple of years ago as part of my degree, and it was an editor who was speaking, and she was kind of giving us this overview of, you know, your personality if you'd make a good editor, and every single one of them, it was just one of those profound moments, you know, when you sit there and you're like, that's me, that's what I want to do with my life. And I think part of that is, you know, I'm into grammar and all of that kind of boring stuff, but crossing the T's and dotting I's and, you know, using the right there or there, which drives me nuts when I see them incorrect. But I think part of it is actually, your job as an editor is to draw out someone else's story and draw out someone's voice and to really identify a voice of an author. And I think that just ties in with my love of words as well. So, I've been editing. I've had a few little manuscripts come my way, which has been an amazing journey. But yeah, I just kind of take on my little corner of the internet at the same time as raising 3 kids. I have a teenager now. My son turned 13 a couple of months ago. So yeah,
it's like a whole other podcast.
It really is. Yeah, motherhood. Let's not podcast that.
Whoa, how a teenage parent is like. Do you know, just as a side note, what I think parenting as a teenager is like being the bumpers and bumper bowling. It's like you can't steer the ball down the alley, but you kind of just like push it back in the middle as gently as you can, so you can kind of work their way down. Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. So I love what you talk about and you're a storyteller and you're all about the story, and you just talked about how you want to pull the story out. And I feel like for me, I couldn't pull my voice out of who I was when I was hustling. Right? Like we think we're like, Em and I have just bravely, which I think it's almost ridiculous to say, we bravely shut down Instagram, like, good job, you know? Like, isn't that kind of weird?
And sad that in this day and age, we place so much emphasis on a social media account.
Yeah. And it's somehow like pulling back from that is being brave. I'm like, that's just, anyways, but I think what this idea of embracing slow is about coming back into who you are and who you really are, because we are so distracted by the noise of stories that are curated that are not actually real.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're too afraid to go in because we think we should be out. So when you were talking like over a year ago of writing Embracing Slow, where did that come from? Where did this idea of embracing slow come from, and why do you think it's important to talk about it?
Well, the image that I kind of got as you were speaking just then was, it's like we're all standing in a stadium shouting out the things that we think people want us to hear.
So good.
But you can't hear the individual voice in the midst of the stadium crowd. But I think that each and every one of us were actually designed to live the life, a village life, that impacts the people who are in our everyday. And it's not that the stadiums are wrong, but I think there are some voices who are designed for stadiums, and there are some voices who are designed for lounge rooms, and there's actually no difference between those two.
The value of each of those.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think over a season, Em and I were having lots of conversations around the messaging that was coming out from social media and from our church platforms and from places, from our families, that we need to do more, we need to be more, we need to have more. And there was such a more message that was coming out. And then I sit down, for me, and I'm a Christian, and that does impact my worldview. But for me, it's actually not about religion or rules, it's actually about relationship.
Totally.
And so for me, I would read letters written to the church in Thessalonica, for example, at the end of Thessalonians, where Paul writes, I make it my ambition to lead a quiet life. And I read a scripture like that, and I'm like, our world and our culture is telling us to be more, to do more, to have more, and that's where happiness will be found. But then I sit in the sages of old and people like the Apostle Paul, and I read his work, and he's like, actually, I make it my ambition to lead a quiet life. And what does a quiet life look like? I look at people whose message is carried thousands of years rather than minutes, like our culture does now.
Seconds.
Yeah, and they actually lived very quiet, very ordinary, very plain lives. And I think a little moment for me was I was on the freeway and I was looking out across a train station full of people, and there was, say, 100 people standing on the train platform, and I'm stuck in traffic as well here in our city of Perth, and I saw 99 of them with their heads down, completely embraced in their phone, and probably looking at all kinds of different stuff. But then I saw this one girl looking out into the traffic, and I was kind of like waving at her, kind of like, You know, and Psalm 46:10 says this, step out of the traffic and take a long, loving look at me, your high God, above politics, above everything. And that was kind of like my moment of awakening into this whole idea of embracing slow rather than being more, having more, doing more. And I answered way too long because M is in the room.
This is why we work so well together.
so,
You're the talker, I'm the listener.
What was your thoughts from it? How did it
everything you said.
Yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
No.
I think a lot of me is a doer and a people pleaser, and I think I can just get into this trap, and it's half the time it's not even for someone else, it's just because I have this high standard for my house, and I have this, standard of life that I think I don't even actually know where it comes from, but I'm constantly reminded of the story in the New Testament where there's two sisters and Martha is running around like crazy, cleaning her house and making everything perfect and, making sure the grazing table is amazing. And, she's wanting, it's almost like she's wanting this, the accolades and just that someone tell me that I'm doing a good job. Where then the contrast to that is Mary, and she's just sitting in the lounge room and she's sitting at the feet of Jesus and she's just listening to him. And he says to Martha, what you're doing is good. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but what Mary is doing is better. She's found the one thing, and I'm not going to take that away from her. And I think it's just that constant, I don't know whether it's my nature or human nature, but I feel like we're just constantly striving and constantly hustling and constantly wanting more. And I think we just have to remind ourselves to just stop and listen. And it's not even, it's a faith element and a spiritual element in that we want to hear what Jesus is saying to us on the daily. But it's more than that too. It's engaging with story and making eye contact with someone, or chat. When was the last time we sat in a public space, not on our phone, and just struck up conversation with the person who was waiting in line next to us? It's so missing and so needed. It's making eye contact and being engaged in the story of someone else.
And it begins at home as well, you know.
So
it begins at home, and I found myself in a place where I was serving all of these people around the world, but I was missing the fact that my daughter was starting kindy next year, and that whole time of the reason why I became a stay-at-home mum and I didn't go back to a full-time work was because I wanted to be present with my kids. And there I was serving this industry and this machine of taking the photos and doing the stuff, and I don't think it's all bad, because you know what, really honestly, I wouldn't have connected with Mish, I wouldn't have connected with Em like I have, I wouldn't have connected with you listening now to this podcast, we wouldn't have found each other. But I need to change the priority of what that looked like in my life and how it needs to serve me, not me be the not me be the slave to it. It's like, how do we master that rather than become a slave to it?
Yeah,
I
and
totally
it's
agree.
It's intentional.
Well, I think too we have to be realistic, right? Like, I think if we can look at our life as seasons, sometimes it's harvest, sometimes it's winter, sometimes it's spring, and to be really generous if we need to have a winter that's 6 months or 12 months because we've been in a metaphorical harvest for 2 years, that's okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I think that there's a lot of, there's nothing better than like a beautiful like beef stew or veggie stew or keto stew in winter with your Ugg boots, right? That whole idea of coming in, the earth doesn't produce naturally apples all year long because it can't. It needs to have a season of hibernation so that it can be fruitful again. I think this whole idea of embracing slow isn't about just shutting down and never coming back out. It's about regrouping and nourishing our spirit, so that if we do decide to come back out in a different way, that we come from a place of nourishment, not depletion. Does that make sense?
I think what I have to remember too is that the embracing slow thing, sometimes you literally physically cannot embrace slow. I work outside the home. I've got to get kids to school. I've got to have lunches done. I've got to have them dressed. I've got to get to work on time. I've got to work all day. I've got to pick up my kids from school. None of that looks slow, but sometimes it's just a mindset. And
Yes.
it's a shift and taking a
Yes.
breath and being aware of where I am and who I'm talking to in that moment and what I'm grateful for, and just slowing your mind down instead of thinking about those 10 next things. Just be here now, just
And
for a second.
I've been realizing as I get older that I can't multitask like I did. Like when I was in my 20s, I would have 20 things in my mind, and I could honestly give a really good go at all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have kids.
Yeah. And I think what they do is they actually hold space in your heart.
They
and
do.
so it's
They
really
do.
hard for you to try and carry what you used to carry. And I think it's the responsibility that kids hold in your heart.
Totally.
But that for you might not have had children. For you, it might be the responsibility of living a purposed life, or I don't know. I think that we do, as we become older, we do slow naturally. But I think that it's not a bad thing. I think it's an amazing thing. And I just don't believe that you can multitask.
No.
Actually don't think you can, and that's what social media promises us as well. It's like you have 25 tabs open, you're trying to do, what if we just had one task today?
Yeah.
What if our one task was actually connecting around the table today? And then you're like, well, because I was talking to my sister and she runs 2 big businesses, and she literally looked at me. I gave her embracing slow, and she's like, I can't slow. That I actually cannot slow.
Yes.
And I was like, it's actually not necessarily about
Well, it can't be about stopping everything.
It's not about stopping.
It's not.
It's a mindset
It's actually
shift.
about focus. It's
Yeah.
actually about being present. It's actually about boundaries.
Yeah.
It is.
It's actually going, you know what? I can't do that. I
Yeah.
read something. There's an amazing writer. Her name is Alex L, and she put something on her
Yeah, she's
Instagram
so
this
good.
morning. And she
We're not
said
on
this.
Instagram anymore, but thank you for
Sorry,
sharing with
so
us.
let me share with you. She said this. I'm sure it's somewhere else, Pinterest.
I'm just
or-
joking.
She said she put on today, build with people who honour your boundaries of no.
Amen.
Like build with people.
Yeah.
Like what if our life was about building people, not tearing people down? And I think that humanity and women, like we're just so bad at like tearing people down to make ourselves feel taller.
Yeah.
But what if we built with people who honoured our boundaries?
We're also really bad at saying no. Like the amount of guilt that women have about not being able to live in this ridiculous version of their capacity. Like I think that we were talking about this earlier, like being a mom, being da 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 da. I think when I was doing palliative care nursing, and I'll never forget, there was a woman there who had 4 children, and she died unfortunately when her children were quite little, and so she had all these 4 kids with a husband, and she passed away quite quickly. And I thought, they're not going to remember how many Instagram photos. They're not going to remember how perfect, how clean the house was. They're going to remember the presents.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely great that we expand a message that we feel really important to do, like you guys are writing and speaking and blogging. But at the end of the day, the juice of the squeeze, none of that matters.
It's true.
Except if that is something that you feel really purposed in, that you feel like it's going to impact people, right? Every time my daughter is melting down, it's always because she needs me. And I remember when I was a new mom, and I was like not hyper focused. I was pretty loose, but like, getting them into a good sleep routine and don't have them in your bed. If I had another kid, I would be like totally co-sleeping. But anyways, but now on the weekends, we curl up and we just fall asleep together. And so I'm like, I'm not going to have that forever.
No, you're not.
I don't need to be smashing workout on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. I just need to just turn it off, and everything is all going to be fine. Nothing's going to fall off this axis. But when we create an identity with the affirmations outside of our creator and outside of the people who are in our bubble that honor the no's, we will continue to hustle for affirmation because we'll never be satisfied. Ever. So I think embracing slow is about this idea of pulling back to figure out where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because Brene Brown just wrote this weekend she was supposed to be in Romania, and she just pulled out because she said she needed to be home. I mean, if Brene Brown can pull out of an engagement in Romania because she needs to stay at home with her children, then why aren't we doing the same?
Yeah.
Or our families or our neighbors, all of that. Like, why are we not just saying, you know what? sorry, I'm not actually going to do that huge gig because my life is more important than the affirmation of 2,000 people that don't actually know me.
Yeah.
It's a pretty profound statement.
And it's not the opposite of living a big life. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely
It's not living a small life. It's actually comes back to saying our best yeses. Like,
Absolutely.
if that opportunity does come along where you need to speak and you need to bring forth your strengths and the best part of you, then go for it. Like, I listened to Abby Womack.
Yeah, I need to listen to that.
Her latest book, or her first book, is called Wolfpack. And there's this whole idea where she's just like, there was this lady in the soccer finals of the world. I'm so not a sport person, so I'm going to get this wrong, but anyway, where she was just like, give me the ball. She knew that she had the goal. Give me the ball. Like, not afraid to actually go, give me the ball. And embracing slow is not about being small, playing small, saying no to everything. It's actually almost like a yoga metaphor where it's like, okay, how do I strengthen my core to be able to say yes in those things that are the most important things for me, and then say no to the things that are not right for me at that moment. And I think so much of what we do is we don't listen to our bodies. We don't listen to the people who are in our close inner circles. And there's like an either or. And I kind of think embracing slow is that middle space where we honour what God is saying, we honour what our family is saying, and we honour ourselves.
Yeah. I think our affirmation doesn't come from external markers of success. That's the difference to me. Our affirmation comes from the people. So
and it's almost like, sorry, it just kind of had a practical application. We could draw a circle and actually in that write who we listen to, and then write names outside of that and who we don't. It doesn't mean that they're not people that we don't respect or that we don't think have amazing insight or wisdom, but we just can't get our yeses and our nos and our boundaries from everyone. Right. There has to be a small group of people that we actually go, okay, this is what I'm thinking, what do you reckon? And then actually just try to fade out the noise of everyone outside of that circle.
Why was writing this book important to you? Why was it important to you?
Because I think I can just see that it's obviously such a message for everyone else, but it was a reminder for myself. We originally wrote it as a week by week blog. I remember that. Amanda would write one on a Friday, I think. Maybe it was me that was a Friday, one of us. But we wrote a blog each a week in the lead up to Easter. It was just a bit of a Lenten journey in that, all right, how do we switch off? How do we slow down? How do we be more present? How do we be intentional in prayer? And in all of those things that are so not present in our society today, how do we make eye contact with people? How do we sit in the stillness when we've got all of this busyness going on? How do we embrace slow while still being busy and leading quite full-on lives? I was leading women's ministry at the time. We had a lot going on, and it was also around the beginning of our sourdough journey as well.
The learning curve.
Yeah, lots of learning curves and lots of Googling how to make fast sourdough. You can't.
No.
It's like, I think it's kind of like embracing those things in our life that take time. And I think we live in a society that Googles recipes and watches videos that tell us how to make something in a minute, and then we order Uber Eats. We live in such a consumer society. We watch worship on a TV and then we forgot that we haven't sung. Like the whole point of worship, like for those who don't really know what I'm talking about, it's just the art of singing, you know? It's that point where someone sings Amazing Grace and there's that connection between our body and our heart and our soul. And as we sing, something releases in this sense of awareness of the bigness of the world, but also the intentionality of a God who knows our name and knows the amount of hair that's on our heads. But we live in a society that we have worship, music, playing, and it becomes a entertainment form rather than a participatory.
I called it show planning tour. Yeah, where we're not actually being called. And it's interesting. There's Aaron Niequist, which is Shauna Niequist's husband. If y'all don't know, Shauna, you should go read Present Over Perfect and then highlight the whole thing and then reread it again like I did. He has a whole book called The Eternal Current, and it's stripping back modern church services down to a more liturgical based service because people are craving that connection. I think it's interesting that we're talking in a faith context because I see sometimes, well, Christian or not, but just this kind of, I was raised with women who were yes women. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can make that food. Yes, I can serve. Yes, I can da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then what you don't have yeses for is your marriage.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I realized when I was, you know, you're doing so well in your business, like you're making tons of money, blah, blah, blah. But my marriage, I didn't even know, like my husband wasn't like left to the side, but we weren't partnering very well together. And one of the things that I feel coming into a season of maybe winter or just hibernation is my marriage feels so much more rich in many ways. There's that connection that can be lost so quickly when we're trying to keep our house as perfect as moms and as business owners. And I think the one thing I've learned is embracing slow is if I don't have a strong marriage, then I don't really have anything else that's strong. If that makes sense. There isn't that deep love there anymore.
Yeah, totally.
I love that idea though, coming back to, you know, just the hibernation kind of thing. Like I was in the garden the other week and I just had this profound moment where I was planting seeds, and they were tiny, tiny, tiny seeds. And it was right before I switched off, right before I deleted my Instagram account. But I really felt that knowing that it was like growth actually happens in the dark. Growth actually happens in the quiet places where, you know, you're not on a platform, no one's watching, you're doing hard stuff, no one knows you're doing hard stuff. You know, you're getting up in the morning and you're finding a place to be still, and you're investing in your marriage. No one's seeing the hard stuff, but it's in that dark, obscure place where all the growth happens, I think.
Absolutely.
In that hibernation.
I don't think we should be afraid of it. I think the reason why people chase so hard to keep hitting external markers of success is because we've been told to not hibernate. We're so afraid of having to work through hard stuff, so we just keep pushing ourselves outward until we actually just fall apart.
Yes,
physically or emotionally.
Like our world really has been based on that whole idea of FOMO, that it comes back to that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And recently, a heap of my friends went to a conference in Sydney, and I did want to go. Like I wanted to go, but I'd had this kind of couple of days before where I realized that I actually wasn't meant to be there, and that was okay. And I really did lean back into that joy of missing out, and it was it was like, you know what, I'm gonna be so proud of myself that I set boundaries and I didn't just do what everyone else was doing. I actually was where I was meant to be. I was doing what I was meant to be doing. And that was like literally boring housework, like writing when no one can see the manuscript that I'm writing. It's all of the sacred that happens far away from our Instagram squares. And that's actually what makes a life.
And on the other hand, I remember so many times pushing to go to those things that, you know, I'm like, I can't miss out. And you get there and it's so empty and draining. It's not filling. You've just hustled yourself in there, and then you leave exhausted and you come home and you're like, oh, okay, I really pushed, and, you know, FOMO led the way and left me empty.
Instead of that rhythm of actually just becoming aware of that relationship with where we're being led to and what Jesus is saying, and that whole idea of, okay, what does today look like, and how can I serve? Like this morning, I've been really wrestling with like that whole idea of generosity and feeling used by people and feeling like people take so much from me. And I think as a mum, our kids take a lot from us, so then you kind of get to that point where you get tired and you're like, so many people are taking from me. And I think there's this part of us that would go, well, stop giving. Like stop giving and stop. But I've been really reframing that, and I've just been going, you know what, the chores around my house are my contribution to my family. And I'm going to find ways that I can enjoy those little moments when I stand at the sink and I put my hands in the water. And rather than getting annoyed at my husband when he puts a cup again, when the dishwasher's empty, he could put it. I'm like, okay, I get to do this. I've got friends who have lost their spouses. And it's not like out of a shame or a guilt place. It's a reframing thing. And I woke up this morning and honestly on my heart, I just went, God, I'm going to serve again today. I'm going to serve. And I know that there's lots of people who won't see it, but I'm going to serve. And I'm going to find a place where I just serve again. And I'm going to forget the why of what I've given to other people. Like, generosity is so transactional in our society today.
It is very much so,
and it's like, well, if I give you this and I profile you on my account, then you have to profile me on my account. And can I have your platform? Can I have what she's having? And it's like, well, actually what she's having is like she's given up everything to lay everything on the floor so that she can do what she's been designed to do, which is serve. So do you want to serve? Because that's how you get what I'm having.
I love that.
Because I'm out there talking to my neighbours and I'm vacuuming my floors and like it's just a very daily kind of...
I think that's what embracing slow is. It's upside down. It's like the kingdom of God. It's like, what the Bible talks about. Just everything is upside down. We embrace slow so that we can live a fulfilled life. And we pour out because we know that there'll be a pouring in. And we become last.
And I also feel like what if you are someone who's entrepreneurial or you feel like you have a word to say, it drips with depth and wisdom when you have come from a place of slow as opposed to a place of hustle. I know even if you just look at Facebook, for example, if you're still on there, which I am, and since I shut down Instagram and then just posted when I wanted to, not without an agenda, but just to share, I guess to serve. If I were
then
to
you
look
had
at
something to say.
Yeah, and then you get like 100 likes, or it doesn't really matter likes, but the engagement is so much higher because you're actually using that platform to serve as opposed to consume or to reel people in.
Yeah.
But it's like, sorry to interrupt, I just kind of had this picture, right? We look at these old massive trees and we're in awe of those beautiful trees. But they began as a seed one time. And 100 years ago, I'm sure that there was someone looking at that tree going, is it growing? Is it growing yet? Is it growing yet? But our society like sees our life and our produce and our jobs and our careers as crop. Like we're constantly cropping things off rather than seeing our lives as big shady trees that people come to sit under. And I want my life to have left a legacy after my 80 years here on this planet. Or I've got beautiful friends who are only here for 30 years, but here for 35 years. And I want those trees to be shady and spacious that people can come and sit underneath them. I don't want to be known for my crop. You know, like
I love that.
I want to be known to be a tree that people come and sit under. And I don't know, it sounds super random.
No, I think it's great.
It was a good idea in my head as I interrupted you.
I think it's a great idea. I think that we have been told to plant crops. We haven't been told to be patient. You know, if you cut trees down too early, they're not of much use. But if you let them grow and grow and grow, they become much more dynamic. So, and when you're in a season of busy, you've got 3 kids, your husband, like there's lots of transition in your family. What is 1 or 2 things that you bring to ground yourself back down?
One of the things that I've kind of implemented lately that I'd lost along the way somehow is just getting up before my family. And I know it's so hard, especially coming into winter because it's cold and it's dark. But honestly, I've been getting up in the morning and I bought this old little secondhand armchair off Facebook Marketplace and I've put it in the corner of my lounge room and I pull up the blinds and the sky is still dark and I sit in my chair and I either write or I read or I just sit and I watch the sky change colour and it it gives me that space to think before anyone else is at me asking for breakfast or asking, you know, what are we doing today? All of those kind of things.
Love that.
And the other thing, because my days are so full at the moment, just in the car, I'm finding myself just listing in my mind the things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And it's honestly slowed me down so much. And so, you know, sometimes our minds can get a bit crazy and we get ahead of ourselves and like, well, my husband hasn't done this and this needs to be done and we still need to do a tip run and this looks like trash and, you know, I need to clean out this and tidy out this. And, you know, instead of thinking of all those things that aren't done or aren't finished or are missing or broken or whatever, it's like, wow, like my husband's gone to work again today. And, you know, I'm so grateful that my son got good grades. I'm so grateful that everyone went to school this morning and they're happy to go. Like those things that I think we can take for granted so often. But also coming back to that, the kind of coming away from what's modern. I love the sourdough. I love finding rhythms in, like, let's do something with our hands. Let's put our screens down. Let's plant some seeds. Let's pull some weeds. Let's bake some bread. And I know that, you know, not everyone's wired like that, but if you can find something, even just go for a walk, something that is
without your phone,
hands-on, no screens, no TV.
You go listen to my partnership. No, it's true though, because like even in the car, it's like listen to a book, listen to a podcast, and then you just
and you feel like, oh, I'm multitasking.
Yeah.
Look at me doing my shopping with my headphones in, listening to a book because I'm reading it. I can do all the things, but sometimes it's just stopping and doing something that's really time consuming, like going for a walk. You think, oh, it's half an hour. I could be doing so much more with that half an hour. But actually, when you come back, you've walked along the ocean, you've got fresh air, you've moved your body, you've got endorphins going on. It's just, and it's so old-fashioned almost, but finding those old-fashioned things are actually so good for the soul.
And they taste better too. Side note.
Way better.
Way better.
Homemade sourdough.
Homemade sourdough, homemade aioli, homemade cookies, pizza dough from scratch.
And I think
So
just having less, like
Being
like
okay
for us,
with having
you know,
less.
like
Yeah.
for me, meals became like these massive, big, crazy, you know, like extravaganzas, and it's like, oh, actually leftovers. Oh,
I love
actually, my kids
leftovers.
are gonna have eggs tonight for dinner.
I know, Ainsley, what do you want, pasta? Awesome.
I think like motherhood
I know, it's true.
in the contemporary, you know, it's like don't give them this and don't touch this and and like there's this massive list of don'ts, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna wreck my kids, and it's like, well, actually, there's no generation that's never not been wrecked.
Yeah.
And actually, in the wrecking is sometimes what brings out the most beautiful people. It's not that we want that for our kids, but I don't know, just lowering my expectations. Like, my husband talks to me lots about expectations because I'm such an optimist. I'm a big dreamer. I'm like, a Saturday with the family turns into an extravaganza of all of these amazing things. And he's like, let's just lower our expectations. Like, lower our expectations of friends. Lower our expectations of ourselves.
Yeah.
Lower our expectations of the renovations we want to do in the house. And that's kind of like embracing flow. Lower that.
Really.
There is no, whether you're renting a house or whether you've bought a house, whether you have short hair or whether you have long hair, whether you are size 18 or you're size 8, like there's actually no rules to this thing. There's no rules. And I think that for all the freedom and for all the knowledge and for all the crazy stuff that we've learnt, we've got so many freaking rules.
I know we do.
Like, we just got, we're supposed to be like free, like people.
Just wear your Ugg boots on the school. Just do it.
There's just so many rules.
Who says?
I know.
Who
There's
says?
just so many rules. It actually should be about, well, what do you think? And what do you feel like God is saying to you? Because, I don't know, like, I think people think that hearing from God or the universe or whoever is that place of refuge for you, they think it's some ethereal, big, booming voice that's going to tell us that we're going to hell.
And I also think that we are conditioned to think that we have to have these, like, profound lives.
Yeah.
You know, like, if everything, like, all of our business, everything has to be so profound. I'm like, why? You know, like, not all of us are going to be Mother Teresa. Not all of us are going to be Gandhi in that context or Brene Brown, but we can do profound things in the everyday.
Oh, and there's so much sacred in what's not seen by everyone
Amen
else.
to that. Yeah, totally. And lunchboxes, like Ainsley's like kind of like jaggedly cut carrots that didn't even get time to peel. She doesn't care. She loves them.
No.
Like there's so much letting go that needs to happen with slow so that you can prioritize what really fills your cup. But so often...
And for some people, having amazing lunchboxes totally fills their cup.
Yeah.
That's like their love language for their family. So it's not actually a comparison of
No,
one
it's just figuring out
lives.
what it is. Yeah.
What's important to you?
Yeah.
Who's in that circle? Who's outside of that circle? Whose voice are you listening to?
And why? What's your
I
why?
love the why.
What are you motivated? Why are you doing that? If it's to just take a pretty photo for Instagram, rethink that, slow down, do something that fills you instead of...
Totally. So ladies, we've had such a good conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours.
We got a bit heated on those ones. It's getting like, it was happening.
Well, I think this is the thing though, and like as kind of someone who's swung into Christianity in like my mid-20s and not being, I didn't grow up in the church, right? Both of you guys have, so I have a different view on it all. It's not just, like I see it in the Christian context as well, right? Like the perfect Instagram photo of the kids in all neutral clothes and the hot cut, like I'm like, I don't really, if that floats your boat, that's absolutely fine. You're talking about how this message of like making sure you have makeup on to go to the store. I'm like, I put mascara on like twice a month. So it's this idea of adhering to the things which give you sustenance as opposed to adhering to things which are rule box ticking that give you nothing.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of slow down, take stock, and then move forward into that message sometimes is going to push boundaries or ideals that you've raised or that you've grown up with. But that's okay. And I think it's actually really important as women to learn how to listen to their own intuition and their faith and their journey in that walk and not listen to the dogma of anything.
Yeah.
Because that's where we get stuck. Be it religion or Instagram or social media or, oh my gosh, moms groups and Facebook groups, school moms, all of that. But all of it, what that often says is that people are yearning to connect. They just don't know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we do need community. I think we do need accountability. We do need
100%.
trust because otherwise sometimes me by myself come up with really weird stuff.
Just lower your expectations.
Exactly. Like
Bring it
let's
back
be
in.
honest. Like if I'm really quiet and I'm by myself for a long time, my poor family, right?
But
I
you know, and then
totally
there's
need people.
others of us who would become hermits if it wasn't for people like you going, hey, don't you reckon you should do this? Hey, why don't you give this a go?
Yeah.
It's like
Definitely.
we actually get weird when we spend too much time by ourselves. We do, right?
But we have to
But
slow
it's who's
down.
in that circle.
Yeah, and we need to slow down to create like casual connection. Like I remember my friend texted me an hour before. She's like, "Do you want to go to a barbecue with us at the park?" And what I love about our friendship is that there's no expectations. So she showed up in UGG boots. We both had like crazy greasy hair, and our kids just played. And then she texted me afterwards and was like, "That was awesome," because it wasn't about what it needed to look like. It was just about that intentional, casual space for connection. But if I had jammed my weekends with work and appointments and stuff like that, I wouldn't have space for that, which is what I'm actually craving.
But for some girls, getting dressed up in a beautiful cocktail dress and going to sit in a beautiful city bar, like, and talk to one another and go full, I don't know, I'm probably getting fully raucous now, but like full Sex in the City vibes. They're like, you know, like they've got their posse, they're loving it, but that's their thing.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. I think what it was what you were saying before that Kelly had said on the weekend. We classify everything as good and bad, rather than
who knows?
Who knows?
But I think what you're saying though is even in the idea is that what we're actually looking for is connection.
Yeah, however you want to find it.
Exactly.
And wherever.
Yeah.
And who are your people?
Despite what you're wearing.
And all our people are different.
Totally.
Did we get off track from embracing slow?
No, I think it's just, I'm just going to call it a round table discussion.
We're embracing
we're on a
all
round
things.
table right now.
So cool.
Although I do feel like
That's
I'm an
why we both-
outsider because I don't have my UGG boots on, so I'm feeling like next time.
You're in Rockingham.
We're in Rockingham. So, ladies, I think what we talk about is really important. I think it's a conversation that a lot of women are wanting to have but are too afraid to have, because I think it's one that we need to talk about even more, about boundaries and just being okay with different seasons. So the book is called Embracing Slow, A Journey of Unhurried Grace by Em and Amanda. It's amazing. I send it to my coaching clients as gifts. it is just one of those things that, you know, maybe you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed or a little bit fried. Do you know one of the things that I've changed so much recently is whenever I go grocery shopping, I have this like immediate need to just like quickly unload the groceries, and it causes like tons of stress, and it sounds so weird. But now I just slowly like move like at a sloth pace, and I don't get stressed out. It's such a weird thing. But even there, I'm like, I'm just gonna slow down and just embrace slow with unloading the groceries. I'm sure somebody who's listening to this
They can
appreciate. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I've gotta get in because I've gotta get dinner and like all this stuff, and I can start like barking orders, and I'm just like, well,
as long as the ice cream goes in the freezer,
it doesn't really matter. Yeah, exactly. So it's called Embracing Slow, A Journey of Unhurried Grace. Where can they find that? Where can people grab that book?
Well, we've actually sold out of our first print.
Oh, well.
I know.
What are they going to do
But they
now?
can download
We have
it.
ebook.
And we have the ebook version, and we're
on both
working
of
on
our
our
websites.
second.
Yeah,
on
I'll
both
link
of
those
our-
in the podcast.
And we're working on our second print run now, but it's a really different book. It's got like opportunity for you to be able to write in it.
It's great.
Almost like a little journal.
Yeah.
It's got photos that we've both taken.
And they're beautiful.
It's like a photographic journal. It's like an indie.
It's like a little retreat. It's like a cup of coffee.
And it's small. It's small. If you're not a reader, you'll still get through it in a few days.
And we've designed it to be used for women's circles as well, like, or connect groups, and people
awesome.
to sit and do it as a group of people. Like if you've got that circle of friends that you want to go on a journey with.
I love it. I think it's great. So thank you guys so much. I will link both Amanda and Em's blogs, websites, etc.
Sorry.
Oh, Amanda, we can't keep it. We'd love to know what you guys thought about the episode. So make sure you give some comments and feedbacks and check out the ladies because they're doing some awesome stuff. So thanks, ladies, for coming today.
Thanks, Mish.
Thanks
No
for having
worries.
us.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. If you'd like to know more about me as a life coach, public speaker, and about my journey, please head to my website, mishpope.com, and click on the tab Connect with Mish for more information. Can't wait to see you back for the next episode.